All right, here we're looking at the engine compartment of our 2022 BYD ATTO 3. And of course, no electric car is complete without a 12-volt conventional lead-acid battery. And that's what we have here. Now, why is this so important? Well, the radio, the liquid crystal displays, the lighting, that's all basically 12 volts. And many of our electronic systems, our computer systems, are operating off of 12 volts. So that's one of the reasons why it's very important to have this 12-volt battery. And this is just a conventional, what we're used to, 12-volt, 6-cell lead-acid battery. Now, hiding underneath the car, unfortunately we can't see it here, but covering the whole surface underneath the car is a very elaborate battery. And very heavy. This car comes in at 2,160 kilograms, 2.2 pounds to the kilogram, so we're coming in right almost at 5,000 pounds. Very heavy. Let's take a look. Here we see the power electronics, and as you can see, BYD powertrain domain controller. So this is going to be our electronics that's going to convert the high voltage DC from the battery into three-phase AC for the servo motor, and vice versa, using the motor as a alternator, rectifying it and applying DC back to the battery for regenerative braking. Now, of course, I'm going to need a cooling system. And what's this cooling system for? It's for the power electronics. Here I can see the cooling tube coming right off what we're calling the domain controller, and then we see it coming down to a type of radiator. Now here I see one of my radiator hoses, and this is an electric pump. Obviously I don't have an engine driven pump, I have an electric pump, so that's my electric coolant pump. And that electric coolant pump is going to circulate coolant obviously through the controller and through our battery. Now this is our heat pump system, and it's going to use conventional refrigerant R134A. Here I can't really say high-low side, I guess I could to the actual compressor, but what happens is I'm swapping the high and the low side there as far as the evaporator and the condenser to determine whether I want heat or cooling. Also, I can pick up heat if necessary from this heat exchanger, which is going to be a coolant to refrigerant heat exchanger. Now here in Thailand, air conditioning is going to be very important. So I would suspect that this vehicle could go its whole life without ever switching over into the heat pump mode, operating strictly in the air conditioning mode. And what am I seeing? This is a type of valving that's going to allow me to swap back and forth between operating the system as an air conditioner and operating it as a heat pump. Now, obviously the power steering is electric, so I have an electric motor that's driving the power assist for the power steering rack. Here I see our anti-lock braking system, and you'll notice that I have a rather large electric motor. Here is part of my brake fluid reservoir. What happens here, we see our upper reservoir, and then I want to call this the lower brake fluid reservoir. Electric motor, valve body, and controller. Now I'm here in Thailand, so what happens is the steering wheel and the brake pedal are over here on the right hand side. All right, now here looking into what I'm going to call our engine compartment, which is our electric motor, I have a very elaborate AC compressor. Now this is actually my heat pump compressor. It's driven electrically, it incorporates an electric motor. Here, this is actually just a muffler device right here, just an expansion chamber to quiet the pressure pulsations there as the pistons come up on their compression stroke. And then I have my high side and low side lines. Now, what happens is they're actually going up to this valve block right here because I need to be able to swap between evaporator and condenser, swapping their functions. And sure enough, I'm going to call it now the front heat exchanger. So I have a front refrigerant heat exchanger. It's going to be here in front of the radiator. And then here we actually see our radiator hoses. Now remember, I'm not trying to cool an engine here. I'm controlling the temperature of a battery and a controller. So my radiator is very, very different. I do have a large electric cooling fan with a very serious electrical connector. Now, I don't really have a grill. As we back out and look at the front of the BYD, I do have a air intake here in the front, down low, but there is no grill. So this looks like a very nice layout. Things are pretty easy to get to. One thing that we're noticing though is that the brake pedal actuator, when I'm pressing the brake pedal, it's part of this assembly. This is a all-in-one unit. Hydraulic motor, valve body, pump assembly, electronic controller. There's really only one brake fluid reservoir. This reservoir is connected to this reservoir through a tube. I have a tube going down from this reservoir to this reservoir, one brake fluid reservoir. Here we see our service fittings for our air conditioning system. Actually, it's not air conditioning, it's a thermal management system. It's my heat pump. And as I look, it actually looks like I have two separate sets of lines. So I have what I'm going to call it a section acting as an evaporator and a section acting as a condenser for heat. So I have a heat and a cool section, and of course I'm swapping here with this valve body assembly. Now as I look in the engine compartment, it's fairly roomy, very nice. Here we see our fuse relay center, which is low voltage. Any high voltage is going to obviously be isolated and identified by the bright orange cables. Now what happens here, apparently the master cylinder is actually incorporated into our anti-lock brake valve body and pump assembly. Here we see the anti-lock brake controller. Here we see the valve body, and there we see the electric motor. Here we see the brake fluid reservoir, and there's really only one reservoir. You see a reservoir here, but what happens, it just has a tube that connects from that reservoir to this reservoir. I don't have a way to fill this reservoir. I have to fill it here. So I have a level sensor or level switch. So if for any reason the brake fluid level got low, it would alert the operator. But here we see it. Our integral anti-lock brake master cylinder assembly. And here I just simply have the 4 individual lines going off to the individual disc brake calibers, front and rear. Very nice, clean package. All right. And this is Bluetooth from his phone, music stored on his phone. So here we're taking a look at the quality of the sound system here in the ATTO 3 from BYD. So we're selecting music off of our phone. So this is an Apple iPhone, and we're going to play the music over the phone. And of course, we saw that earlier, that with a touch of a button on the steering wheel, I can reorient the screen from horizontal to vertical, so it matches, of course, the screen of a cell phone. And I can put the screen of my Apple iPhone up on the vehicle screen. Okay, we're jumping back to the 1970s, and there's the Bee Gees. They're in beautiful, I guess I'm going to call quad stereo. That's right, there. Yeah, we're going to close the door. And I have the little tweeters right up here as part of the door handle. I got my hand on it, I can feel it. In fact, here's another speaker. So here, there in the floor, here we have the larger mid-range. So here's the tweeter, the mid-range. Now, it's possible that some people might actually purchase a car for the stereo system, and if you're one of those people, you won't be disappointed with the BYD. Okay, and here we have a complete equalizer function, so I can emphasize the low frequency and the high frequency. So going across low frequency 80 hertz, 500, 1000, 5000, and then up there, and I believe what I'm seeing is 16,000 hertz, and that's actually the limit of human hearing for a healthy young human being is about 20 to 22,000. But most older people, they're not going to be able to hear anything much above 15 or 16. Okay, here we see the sunroof. It's very large. Here I have the air dam. So, very nice. For those, we certainly have one here with BYD. So there's a regular 220 volt outlet, 7 hours.
ตัวนี้เวลาฉุกเฉิน accident ฉุกเฉินฟรีเราไปตามรีสอร์ทพูลวิลล่าเราสามารถเสร็จได้เลย7 ชั่วโมงแล้วคือได้กลับคืนมา100 กิโลอย่างเช่นลูกค้าไปพัทยาสมมติว่าไปนอนรีสอร์ทแล้วก็ไปจอดปุ๊บแล้วก็เอาตรงนี้เสร็จได้เลยเราไม่ต้องเสียเงินละไม่ต้องเสียเงินเติมปั๊มเพราะว่าพัทยานี่130 โลเราใช้กลับมาได้100 โลบางทีอาจจะเต็มด้วยซ้ำไปครับตัวนี้เราสามารถปรับได้ไหมคือเวลาเราใส่ค่อนข้างเยอะขึ้นปกติตัวนี้แบบนี้จะต้องกระเป๋าเราใหญ่นะครับ
There we go. Okay. Oh, that increases the height of the compartment. Yes. Very nice. Very nice. Good and deep, too. Nice lip. So what happens is you have the option of having this up at this level where you would have area underneath this, or you can lower it down. And this There we go. Yes.
สามารถเหมือนเป็นรถบ้านที่เราสามารถนอนได้เลยไปออกแคมปิ้ง
All right, so here we go with our floorboard in the upper level is perfectly flat. They're going across. So you could actually sleep in the vehicle. In the lower position, that's going to be very uncomfortable. But here in the upper position, flat surface all the way forward. Now, one of the things about the BYD ATTO 3 is the battery is a full length from the rear wheels to the front wheels. They're underneath the vehicle. And it's designed to be easily removed. And you'll notice that I don't have a rocker panel. No rocker panel. Here, the rocker panel is part of the door. So this is rather an interesting feature here. So it allows me to very easily get to that battery. There it is, and we can actually see it. We have strategic points where it's actually fastened there to the frame structure of the car. And this also is an integral part of the structure of the car. This car weighs 2,160 kilograms, and the majority of that is that battery. Okay, here we are. We're road testing the BYD ATTO 3, and this vehicle comes in at a weight of 2,160 kilograms. Very, very heavy vehicle, 2.2 pounds to the kilogram, so we're at 5,000 pounds. This weighs as much as a large pickup truck in the U.S. And of course here that their version of Surrey doesn't understand what I mean is because I'm not speaking in Thai. This is built specifically for the Thai market, so we see that it's expecting to hear the Thai language. Now, when you have a very heavy car, the sprung versus the unsprung weight of the vehicle, there's a tremendous difference. So if we hit a bump, what happens is the lower control arm, the tire, the brake rotor, right, Oh yeah, very good acceleration. And the caliber, it's bearing against an object that weighs 5,000 pounds. So the vehicle, when it hits a bump, the lower control arm, the tire, the rotor, the brake caliber, they move violently, but the rest of the car, with this tremendous mass and the property of inertia, it takes an awful lot to accelerate and decelerate it. They're going over a bump, so it's very smooth. Now, of course, the motor is good and powerful, so that when we accelerate, we're able to put energy into the car at a high rate, and so it accelerates briskly. But then vice versa, when it's time to decelerate, my regenerative braking system is going to now use the motor as a generator and convert that kinetic energy into electrical energy to charge that battery, and does that very nicely. Now the air conditioner works very well, and they have on the BYD, the ATTO 3, it has actually a heat pump system. So here in Thailand, we're going to be using it. Here we have the acceleration, there it goes. Just like a BMW Model 3. There we go. Feels good. But here in Thailand, it's air conditioning that's important. I doubt if this thing would ever use its heat function in the life of the car if it lived here in Bangkok. Now we traveled to the dealership in a Toyota Vios, so we're kind of able to compare it. And the ATTO 3, it feels very solid. It's a very solid feel. It's quiet.
อันนี้ผมจะถอดคันเร่งครับเนี่ยเราจะรู้สึกว่ามันไม่หน่วง
Now visibility is good. I have to say, at least, you know, the front windshield, the side windows are good. I have a good rear view mirror. Now this is a type of hatchback, and I do have a 360 view camera system, and I have a rear camera, so that it will really help me in a situation where I'm trying to park or back into a parking place. As you can see, we have the AC vents, quite an array of AC vents. And as the passenger here, I have a control for the blower. So I'm here on level 2. Level 5 is a little noisy, but level 2 is certainly a sufficient airflow, nice and cool, and doesn't make any sound. Now this is just a two-wheel drive, just a front-wheel drive vehicle. So it's not all-wheel drive. And it does have a good range of 480 kilometers. Now here in Bangkok, Thailand, window tinting is very, very important. And here, BYD is well aware of that. And so you can see there's a heavy tint right here from the factory on both the windshield itself and the side windows. The sun can shine very bright here in Thailand, and it really helps to have tinted windows.
เวลารถแซงซ้ายขวาเขาจะมีการแจ้งเตือน
Now, some of the features like the blind spot monitoring, that's available here on the ATTO 3.
ความคมชัดของภาพ
And here's our 360 view there with our camera system. We're coming back to the dealership. Okay, so here we're actually sitting in the driver's seat of the ATTO 3 BYD, and here we see our various controls. I have my wiper washer control.
Say that again.
Here I have my turn signal and my
The ambient
headlight
light is
control.
already on. One more time. Try saying turn on Bluetooth. Or find a parking
That's
space
right.
nearby.
Yeah, let's see if we can jump out of that there. We're going through our different modes.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
And here I actually have my ability there with cruise control to adjust the distance between the car in front of me and the front of my vehicle, which is a very nice feature. So I have that active cruise control system. Here we have our camera system so that I can go ahead and, using the combination of cameras there, front, rear, and on the side, I can actually get a 360 view. And this is a nice feature. A lot of people are used to looking at the screen of an iPhone, and so this replicates that very nicely. Here, what's a nice feature is that I have tilt and telescope here for the steering wheel. Nice feature.
Once more, you can say things like navigate to the library or run to the
And
street.
one thing that's interesting, we were looking at the brake module unit out there. I do not have a separate master cylinder. When I'm pressing on this brake pedal, I'm actually moving a potentiometer that's part of the full four-wheel anti-lock brake system, which has a
Sorry, I don't understand
common
what you mean.
master cylinder, but it has one large reservoir that's connected to a smaller reservoir that's mounted right on top of the unit in the engine compartment. So that's kind of a little different from what we're used to seeing. We don't have a separate master cylinder and vacuum brake booster. We have one common unit, and I can see that's just an obvious migration there to kind of unitize and make it a much more simple and streamlined.